fullness of the truth with clarity and charity.
Heard around the world on iCatholic Radio on your Android and Apple mobile devices.
Ask a Priest Live. Guided by the Holy Spirit and honoring the magisterial teachings of the Church. Faithful Catholic priests answering questions for believers and those seeking truth. Ask a Priest, because Father knows best. And now, your host, Jordan Pacheco.
God be praised in his angels and in his saints. Hello, everybody, listeners and viewers all. Welcome back to Ask a Priest Live. I'm your host, Jordan Pacheco. Hope you guys are having a very, very wonderful Wednesday out there. Hope you are staying warm. And if you're in one of the places that is affected by this impending hurricane, I hope that you are safe and that your family as well, that you're getting to safer territory. I met somebody who flew in from Florida out here to Colorado yesterday. So, we are keeping everyone in Florida and in North Carolina and all other places affected in our prayers. But welcome back to Ask a Priest Live. This is a great show because if you have a question, you get to ask one of our wonderful priests and it's live. How great is that? So today we have on with us Canon Benjamin Norman, Institute of Christ the King Sovereign Priest out there in Oakland, California. Canon, it's always a pleasure. How are you doing?
Doing pretty well. How are you doing, Jordan?
We are alive and kicking. Does Oakland, I know that California is kind of infamous for necessarily, depending where you're at, having or not having seasons, but is it leaf peeping season out there in Oakland, or is the weather just the same all year round?
It's kind of beautiful weather usually out here, but also sometimes it kind of reminds me of the Irish climate, a little bit schizophrenic, that is to say, going back between rain and shine all day long. But we've been having a heat wave here. Thankfully, it's finally cooled down, but these past week or so, it's been going up into the low hundreds even. It's been pretty toasty. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm looking forward to
glad that you haven't melted
temps.
away. That makes us quite happy. That's what I've been thinking too. Colorado's the same way, by the way. We have stories where it'll be freezing and frost in the morning, and by noon it'll be a heat wave coincidentally. So that's kind of the weather we're at here in this part of fall. But very happy that you're on with me. I'm looking at the questions. They're really great. And I want to open up the phone lines. 1-877-511-5483. If you have questions for Canon Norman, want to hear from you, 1-877-511-5483, or email your questions for Canon today, priests@thestationofthecross.com, as well as type up your questions on YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. 1-877-511-5483. All right, here we go. Our opening question actually is going to come from my coworkers at the Augusta Institute. They're very curious about this here at the end of the day, Canon, and they'd like to know, what is the Catholic Church's teaching on hypnosis? Is hypnosis permissible?
No, it's not. I mean, as best I can understand, it would not, because like, for example, the usage of illicit drugs, like marijuana, for example, there involves a certain robbing you of your reason. You come under an influence in which you can be coerced by another person to do something else, even something nefarious. So, if the person hypnotizing you wants you to anyway. So anything which robs us of our reason, like just as, for example, marijuana can bring on psychotic episodes, and other drugs too as well, or can also. I don't really, even though I'm not aware of, at the moment, of a magisterial condemnation of hypnosis, I don't see how, based on the principle of having to at all times preserve our reason, how hypnosis could ever be permissible.
Great question from my coworkers, opening us up there. 1-877-511-5483. Evelyn on YouTube says, good evening. Hey, good evening, Evelyn. Good to see you. Good evening, Janice. I like when everyone in the chat says hello to each other. Omar, hello. 1-877-511-5483. Aiden in South Dakota says, hello, Canon. I'm having trouble understanding what a sin of weakness is. Can you please explain what it is and give an example?
Well, sin of weakness would really be, comprise many different sins potentially. Anyway, it's sort of I guess you could say a little bit of a catch-all term because so many of our sins of varying natures, but especially oftentimes sins against the flesh, sins against the sixth commandment, are or sins which involve a certain failure of patience, like when we give rise to we don't control our temper, or sins of gluttony because we lack the necessary force or strength to practice mortification. These all involve a certain weakness, but I think most they all involve a certain failure to rise to the occasion of practicing the virtue that is required, specifically because the soul finds it too difficult, too arduous. It would almost be easier to talk about what sins would not constitute a sin of weakness than those which are, because again, pretty much every sin involves a certain weakness in one way or another. But I suppose most commonly sins which are referred to as sins of weakness would again probably be the sins against the sixth commandment. Because let me add a qualifier to that, a modification. If it's a matter of someone who a Catholic who's practicing their faith and who obviously understands and accepts that illicit sexual behavior is sinful, and therefore they have a habitual desire to avoid that kind of behavior, to avoid those sins, but then because of the potential for pleasure that can be received from those sins, they finally cave in and commit the sin, whatever it might be, even though they, with their higher will, they do not want to. They do not want to fall to that sin, but they cave into it out of an inability to mortify that desire for pleasure. Again, so it would be a similar thing with practicing, Catholic or another person who is aware that gluttony is sinful. If they give in to that desire for more and more, whether it's food or drink, all the while knowing that they have a duty to mortify that.
You're listening to Ask a Priest Live. We're on today with Canon Benjamin Norman, Institute of Christ the King, Sovereign Priest. Going to get those questions in, friends. In fact, Kirk, I see that you're on the line out there in New York. Hey, thanks for calling in, Kirk. And what's your question for Canon?
Canon, my question is, I've heard that there's 15 promises attached to saying the daily rosary, and that one of them is signal graces. And I've never known, or no one's ever been able to explain that to me. What are signal graces?
Well, traditionally, when we talk about signal graces, we're talking about graces that lots of individuals might refer to as signs, something that some providential event in one's life that makes it clear to the person witnessing it then and there that this is the grace of God, and usually the signal grace always that signal grace would be either in answer to a prayer, or perhaps not necessarily, perhaps just given out of the pure gratuitous generosity of God to show that particular soul what is needed. What in some particular question, like for example, what is the next step for them in their vocational discernment, or what is perhaps if they're already in. Say hypothetical example, someone maybe someone in a marriage, maybe perhaps a difficult marriage, and they've been wondering for the longest time, what is it that I should do, either to improve myself or for what is it that my spouse, either my wife or my husband, what is it that they want from me, that they're seeking from me. They're dissatisfied in some way, but I don't know what it is, and they won't tell me. But then maybe certainly somehow, if He wills, God can manifest that through means of His choosing, but in a manner that's clear to that person. You see it. You understand. That is to say, you understand, and that's the marriage example is just one of many possible examples. There's been it's been, I would like to think, for just to give you a personal example, talk about where I know best. I would like to think that I hope it was the case that when I finally started to pass the hardest philosophy tests I had at seminary, ones that I had failed a number of times and of course had to pass before I could advance, that when I finally started to pass those, that was a certain signal grace from God that yes, I really was on the right path. And I was able to, by God's grace, persevere to priestly ordination. So anyway, the key is in the word sign. It's in the word signal. So God gives you a sign in one way or another to point you in the right direction.
You're listening to Ask a Priest Live. We're on today with Canon Benjamin Norman, Institute of Christ King Sovereign Priest. Want to get those questions in, friends? The phone line is wide open. You can call in even throughout the break, 1-877-511-5483. You can also email those questions for Canon today, priests@thestationofthecross.com, as well as type them up on YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. I'm Jordan Pacheco. Don't go anywhere. YouTube will take a spin through your questions, one of them about Catholic workout groups and what Canon's thoughts might be about them. Hey, I'll see you right after the break. God bless you.
Did you know you can help evangelize simply by using your cell phone? The Station of the Cross has partnered with iCatholic Mobile, America's only Catholic mobile phone company. When you join iCatholic Mobile, a portion of every dollar will support our programming. Plus, you'll enjoy great service with iCatholic Unlimited 5G data, text, and talk. With iCatholic Mobile, you can stay connected with family and friends while also spreading the truth of Jesus Christ with clarity and charity. Join today at iCatholicMobile.com.
Please join us in a prayer to St. Anthony of Padua. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. O dear protector, St. Anthony, on this day we direct our fervent prayer to you, asking you to hear us and to intercede for us. We are parents who ask for peace in our families, our worthy occupations, and our daily bread. We are children who ask for divine assistance and protection in the hope of a successful and happy future. We are the needy poor, the afflicted, and sinners who come to you for help and grace. Therefore, speak on our behalf to that child whom you hold in your arms, and we are sure of being heard. Amen.
30 seconds on the gifts of the Holy Spirit, brought to you by the Station of the Cross. The gift of understanding helps the mind to comprehend revealed truths. Many times you might think to yourself, I've explained this aspect of morality so clearly to my friend, why can't she seem to get it? It's a beautiful gift to have understanding of the faith and moral situations. Pray for others to receive that gift as well.
You're listening to Ask a Priest Live from the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network. Have a question? Ask a priest. Call 1-877-511-5483 or email us at priests@thestationofthecross.com.
God bless you, listeners and viewers all. Welcome back to Ask a Priest Live. I'm your host, Jordan Pacheco. We're joined today by Canon Benjamin Norman, Institute of Christ King, Sovereign Priest. Going to get those questions in. Phone lines wide open at 1-877-511-5483. Or you can email your questions, of course, priest@thestationofthecross.com. So let's type up your questions on YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. Speaking of our YouTube, please don't forget, if you've been enjoying the show, perhaps you like to watch reruns and highlight videos, YouTube is a perfect resource for that. And we're only 50 subscribers away from 4,000. So if you haven't already, nothing's stopping you. Why don't you go ahead and subscribe, just like Midwest Thomist has done with this great question. Hello, Canon. What are your thoughts on a Catholic men's workout group, specifically for young adult men? Our plan is to promote growth in virtue and discipline. Any advice you have for us would be great.
It's a good question. I think it's a good idea. It's important to try and stay in shape if you can, if you have the time for that. I should do more myself, but anyway, try to remember that everything you do, absolutely everything, even the most mundane details of your life, it's what is it really about? About the glory of God. So while it's good to keep physical health in mind and trying to become stronger is a good goal in itself. Let's make sure that we're always doing it for the right reason, to glorify God, and for the salvation of our souls, for our increase in virtue, growing closer to God. I would keep to that effect, make sure that I would always start off any workout sessions and end them too with prayer. Try to make use of ejaculatory prayers during any working out, like Sacred Heart of Jesus, I trust in you, and Immaculate Heart of Mary, pray for us, and other such similar prayers. I mean, those are ejaculatory prayers, short prayers that you say on your own, usually silently, but they should be usually short and very fervent. Limit the membership to men. I would say adult men. Set an age limit. Like I think in most states you're an adult at 18. So I would limit it to adult men. Yeah, I mean, I think that's and perhaps try to see if with this adult workout, this adult male workout group, if you can't occasionally get together for other events as well, notably assisting at the Holy Mass, or at least for a rosary, or perhaps social things too, meeting, enjoying one other's company over a good dinner somewhere, things like that occasionally. I mean, yes, okay, most of the time it's going to be about working out. I get it, but it's good to have some other activities as well. Just remember that really absolutely everything we do here below, even the most seemingly unimportant details of our life, it's really all for God. And you might not gain that much muscle mass, but if you gain mass, spiritual mass in your soul, it's far infinitely more important.
Great question indeed, Midwest Thomist. And continuing on YouTube here, we have this question from Omar. Omar says, "Oh, whoa, we're getting into some news." Omar says, "Canon Norman, what do you think about Pope Francis's new appointments to the College of Cardinals?"
Seems that I know cardinals are. I admit I try to. These days, so often the news coming out of Rome just leaves me kind of confused or shocked or saddened or something like that. So that for my own soul's benefit, I do try to keep a healthy distance from it. I admit, I have heard certain things about certain cardinals being appointed who may not be totally orthodox, which should concern us at a certain level. But we have to remember, always, popes and cardinals, popes, bishops, priests, they come and go, but the church remains, and Christ remains with the church through all. So that's what I would say. Ultimately, the man who's appointed doesn't, it can bring about a lot of good. It's true. It can also bring about a lot of bad. But this is all, in the temporal sphere. I mean, sure, okay, yes, there's a possibility for wrong people accede to positions of power. Yes, that can have great influence over souls, and yes, it can lead to the gain of many souls or the loss of many souls. But none of us are ever going to lose our free will. We all have the ability to hold to the faith of the apostles, come what may. So let's not grow overly concerned. That would be my and pray and continue to pray for those who will be appointed, who will be made cardinals. Pray for those who are already cardinals. Pray for the Pope. We should all pray for the Church, quite simply. But don't ever forget that Christ always remains with his Church.
Well said. You're listening to Ask a Priest Live. We're on today with Canon Benjamin Norman, Institute of Christ King, Sovereign Priest. Phone lines open at 1-877-511-5483. Again, that call-in number, 1-877-511-5483. Or email those questions for Father Priest at thestationofthecross.com. I want to thank our friends over at iCatholic Mobile. That's what I'm trying to say. iCatholic Mobile is the only American Catholic phone company. They're a really great company, relatively new partners with us here at the Station of the Cross, and your connection to everything Catholic, strengthening your life, family, and community. So if you've been shopping for a new phone plan, maybe you want to try something that actually will help you shape your faith and connect to your faith all the more, iCatholic Mobile has a great set of plans for you and your family, and that also includes their iCatholic Unlimited 5G data, talk, and text. And iCatholic Mobile gives every portion of a dollar earned to the Station of the Cross. So they're very great sponsors of us. We're very, very appreciative of them. So go on over to iCatholicMobile.com to sign up, is also to get more information. That's iCatholicMobile.com. 1-877-511-5483. Ignatius joins us now. Hey, Ignatius, thank you so much for calling in. And what's your question for Canon?
Thank you for taking my call. My question for Canon Norman was about material heresy. So I was having a conversation with my local priest recently, and I don't know if I just, worded the conversation poorly, but I was a little bit confused because we were having a conversation about theosis, the doctrine of theosis. I talked about, somewhere in that conversation, I started talking about material heresy. He thought that if somebody committed or said a heresy without knowing it was a heresy, then that's not something that a person had to go to confession for. And that confused me a little bit. Again, maybe it was just my fault. Maybe I just misunderstood the question, or maybe I just worded it, poorly. But I had thought that material heresy was something that a person had to go to confession for, and I thought that kind of fell into the line of material heresy. Somebody saying something that was a heresy, but not formally saying it was a heresy. Again, I don't know. I just wanted to check with you. Is material heresy, if somebody recognizes a material heresy, like if somebody says something that's a material heresy, but then they later recognize it's a material heresy, is it something they should go to confession for? That's what I wanted to see with you.
I would say yes. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't there for the conversation that you had with this priest, so I would never want to contradict my confreres in the priesthood. But I mean, I would just think that, given that heresy is just, if we abstract it from the question of personal culpability for mortal sin, there's also the reality of what a thing is, in itself. And if someone has said something that is a material heresy, so materially, just in itself, a mortal sin, or grave matter, to be more precise. If in itself it is grave matter, then then one really just one should mention that in confession. I mean, for one thing, it's true. Okay, it's true. You might realize that really it's very likely that you are not fully responsible for the fact that you said what you said, or that you wrote that you wrote, perhaps whatever. But nevertheless, you never really know. We forget there was so many other sins of negligence, for example, that we commit and forget about, which could have led to the commission of an act which is in itself grave matter. So I would say that one should just, for humility's sake and for any possible absolution of sin that needs to take place, of something related to grave matter, material heresy, that it would be more prudent to mention it in one's confession, so you should.
Yeah, because the way it basically went was, we were talking about, like, say, for example, somebody accidentally said something that implied modalism, because that's an example of a material heresy I see all the time. I see people, they don't realize they're talking about modalism, but they say modalism. And the priest was saying if they didn't know that wouldn't be, if they said that but didn't know that, it wouldn't be a sin, and they wouldn't have to go to confession for that. And that kind of was confused.
Well, I hear the music, so I don't really have time to respond, but I could try and finish responding to what you just said after the next break, I suppose.
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Ignatius, hey, you stay on the line. I'll probably have you repeat that last little part of the question when we come right back from the break. It's a really interesting question. We want to make sure we give as much time as possible to make sure to answer. So you hang on out there in New York. We'll be with you again once right after the break. In the meantime, halfway through the show, friends, keep sending those questions in. 1-877-511-5483. I'm Jordan Pacheco. Don't go anywhere. More Ask a Priest Live and more Canon Norman right after the break. God bless you.
This is Jesuit Father Robert McTagg, your daily host of the Catholic Current, and I'm asking for your help. Folks have been asking me to answer questions on the air, so I'm asking you to send questions to my mailbag. We can do this good work together. Send us your questions at thestationofthecross.com/askfather. That's thestationofthecross.com/askfather. I look forward to hearing from you.
I'm Jim Havens, host of The Simple Truth, heard weekdays at 4 p.m. Eastern on the Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network.
This is kind of the playbook of how the culture has been so decimated and destroyed. I think the most important thing is to just recognize how much we have been manipulated. And, I've come to see anytime Christianity and Judaism are weak, the occult just fills in. It's like the jungle. The weeds just come in, and that's what fills the gaps.
That's The Simple Truth, weekdays at 4 p.m. Eastern on the Station of the Cross.
Did you know that an unwanted car or truck can make a great gift? When the time comes to purchase a new one, consider donating your old car or truck to the Station of the Cross. We have a quick and simple way for you to get rid of your unwanted vehicle while supporting the solid Catholic programming you love listening to on your radio, online, and through your mobile devices. Whether they run or not, we accept cars, trucks, RVs, boats, and motorcycles. It's a great opportunity for you to give more than you might normally be able to. At the same time, you'll be clearing out space in your garage or driveway, ridding yourself of an unwanted vehicle. Just visit us online at thestationofthecross.com or call 1-866-628-CARS, 1-866-628-2277. May God bless you for your generosity in support of Catholic Radio.
Did you know that live video of the show is just a few clicks away? Follow us on Facebook and YouTube at Ask a Priest Live. Search for the Station of the Cross on Rumble. Or check out our Watch Live page at thestationofthecross.com.
God bless you, listeners and viewers all. Welcome back to Ask a Priest Live. I'm your host, Jordan Pacheco. We're joined today by Canon Benjamin Norman, Institute of Christ the King Sovereign Priest. We're halfway through the show, and we have a lot of great questions on the docket, and we want yours to be a part of them. So go on and call in 1-877-511-5483. Again, that call-in number, 1-877-511-5483. When we last left off, Ignatius, we were kind of going into your question. The question initially was a question on a clarification regarding material heresy, whether one has to go to confession if they don't recognize that they've uttered something of material heresy. But you were asking a further question, Ignatius. So I'm going to go ahead and have you re-ask that question, and we'll get to Canon's answer.
Yeah, so just to give you a little bit of context on what the conversation was like. So basically we were talking and you know, I brought up the situation, like I'll give you an example. Modalism. I see a lot of people who will accidentally say something that sounds like modalism because they get confused with the Trinity and they get confused with the persons of the Trinity. And so they'll accidentally say something that kind of implies modalism, not knowing that they're doing that. And not doing it in a formal sense. If somebody were to spread a material heresy like that and then recognize it, is it something that they should go to confession for? Because what this priest was telling me, and again, maybe he's right, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. What he was telling me was if somebody did that, they wouldn't have to go to confession because they didn't know they were committing a material heresy. Therefore, they know they didn't have full knowledge that they were committing a sin by committing heresy or a material heresy. And so I was kind of confused by that, and so I wanted to see what your view was on that.
I think this, to give you a proper answer, this might require a longer conversation, which is not necessarily cannot necessarily be had here and now on Ask a Priest Live. But because I mean, for example, you said you used the word spread, as in they're like spreading a heresy. Why? Because they're giving a conference or something, and they're standing in front of a bunch of people, but also, or it's just, or on the other hand, are we just talking about a conversation between two people? Also, the other thing you said is that they it's like it seems really tenuous. It seems like they, first of all, it's accidental on their part. Secondly, it only, you know, you said it sounds like it could imply modalism. I mean, I don't know, you know, I don't know. I think something like that just sounds so vague that it's really know exactly what we're talking about here. And to actually, if someone were actually concerned that they had committed a sin in that regard, they would simply have to regulate that question in the confessional by describing in more detail what was said and what were the circumstances to the priest. Here, I'm still not exactly sure what we're talking about, but it doesn't really, if it's just, it doesn't really sound like a clear-cut case of, you know, material heresy, especially if it's just, as you said, something that sounds like it could be implying, you know, modalism. It seems like a really tenuous connection. Does that make sense? Well,
an interesting question indeed, Ignatius.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, you're right about the circumstance there, Canon. I think so. Great question indeed, Ignatius. Hey, thanks for sending that in. It's always nice to have a good few minutes dedicated, especially because it's the conversation about modalism doesn't come up. That's not a word we use a lot of times on this show. So looks like it's bonus props today for naming the heresy. Hey, you're listening to Ask a Priest Live. We're on today with Canon Benjamin Norman, Institute Christ King Sovereign Priest. Going to get those questions in. Phone lines wide open at 1-877-511-5483, or you can email your questions, of course, priests@thestationofthecross.com, as well as type up those questions on YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. Here's 2 questions from Brother Knight Scott. Good to hear from you. His first one, Canon, is what is Reiki and should Catholics avoid it?
I don't know what it is, but yes, Catholics should avoid it. No, just it's pretty weird. As soon as it sounds weird, you just know you should avoid it. No, I'm sorry. No, I don't.
That's okay. Right.
I mean, I say that because I have heard the term before, and I'm sort of have a I know it's certainly not part of like the certainly not a part of the deposit of faith. Let's just, I don't think the apostles were talking about Reiki. Now, I have heard the term before. Not exactly sure what it is. If we could have, but I think it I do think that it has vaguely to do with some sort of religious practice. But anytime I hear religious practices that are not really either a part of or flowing from or somehow connected to traditional Catholic spirituality, well, immediately red flags go up. Just like, people might ask me, well, what would you...
It's one of those things with like the life. I think it's, and for everyone who knows what Reiki is in chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's the sort of Eastern medicine healing that involves
okay. As soon as you hear, okay, all right. So as soon as you say the word Eastern, yeah, the answer is no. I'm sorry, but okay, nothing against people in the eastern half of the world. I'm not saying that false religions, they don't have any shred of truth whatsoever in them. I'm not saying that, but we have to just understand that really this whole new age movement is just sort of a mishmash of sort of rehabilitated Eastern ideas about plenty of all and sundry litany of things that are in some way contradictory to the teachings of Christ, like karma, for example. I hear that term all the time. This Eastern originally, I think, Hindu or Buddhist idea of karma, or like as if there's this invisible mystical force out there known as karma that goes around sort of rewarding the good and punishing the evil by if you cheated on your taxes last year, that means your cat's going to run away or something like that, and someone might someone might describe a scenario like that, and then the other person would say, "Oh yeah, karma's a real, you know what?" And just like, no, karma doesn't exist. God exists, and the angels exist, and the fallen angels exist, and we exist. But there's not, I don't know, these preternatural, mystical. It's not Star Wars, the Force or something like that. Karma it's not real. There's there where to anyway, I hope that's clear. You don't need Eastern ideas. What we need is the Catholic faith, and I would recommend also scholastic philosophy through the lens of Saint Thomas Aquinas in particular. And then if you want to understand those Eastern ideas and what truth there is in them, do so through the lens of the Catholic Church, especially St. Thomas Aquinas.
Second question he has is, what exactly is a near occasion of sin?
The near occasion of sin would basically be the circumstances, whether place or individuals or time of day or time of night, that make a fall into mortal sin likely. So, being, for example, I'm always always tell young adults or sometimes not so young adults who are think about getting married. So one man and one woman, obviously, that they're not to be alone and in private together, for example, before marriage, because we know how that often ends. We're all weak, and temptation can come on very, very quickly and be very hard to resist, especially if there's no one else around to stop you. That would be one particular case of the near occasion of sin. Certain reading material that is known to have certain kinds of images in it obviously would be the near occasion of sin. Certain magazines, or just going on the internet at certain times of night when we're more fatigued, and our ability to correspond to grace and resist temptations is much weaker than it is, for example, during the day. These are various examples of the near occasion of sin. It's basically the circumstances that make mortal sin likely.
Great questions indeed, Brother Knight Scott. Hey, thanks for sending those in. 1-877-511-5483. Again, that call-in number, 1-877-511-5483, or go on and email those questions, priests@thestationofthecross.com. I like what Evelyn says here, and I want to read this real quick. Evelyn says, a priest told me that driving into New York City is a near occasion of sin, Canon, probably because of the proximity of swearing or maybe hitting a pedestrian. I don't know. What's your take on that out there in Oakland?
Well, yeah, Oakland can certainly feel that way. The traffic in Oakland and the Bay Area in general sometimes. I almost wonder, if the priest wasn't making a lighthearted comment, because you can't just tell an entire city not to drive. For example, the cab drivers, that's how they make their living. You have other people who are going to need to drive in New York City. Now, if you're close to swearing in traffic, well, obviously, you shouldn't swear yourself, but I think there are plenty of individuals who can, be exposed to that and that sort of behavior, and not necessarily be tempted to do the same thing. Or, if they are try to distract yourself somehow, whether it's by praying the rosary while such kind of language is being uttered. I simply, I don't know. I don't know too many individuals out there who are likely to start cussing a blue streak just because they hear, the other drivers on the road doing the same thing. I'm not sure, how many individuals that would really be the near occasion of simply being.
Oh, Canon, I think we lost you there a little bit. Looks like your audio started glitching out and it cut out. So we'll try to get you kind of back up on the internet there. In the meantime, keep sending those questions in, friends. We're joined today by Canon Benjamin Norman, Institute of Christ King Sovereign Priest. He'll be back as soon as we get that internet squared away. 1-877-511-5483. Again, that call-in number, 1-877-511-5483. Or go on and email your questions, of course, priests@thestationofthecross.com. So let's type up your questions on YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. And considering while we're getting Canon back, it's also a good reminder that we all should prepare for what may come after, as well as our temporal affairs. And that's why I want to thank our friends over at mycatholicwill.com. Mycatholicwill.com is making it more accessible than ever for you to create your own Catholic will for your peace of mind and your family's peace of mind. Go on over to mycatholicwill.com/the Station of the Cross and use that promo code 14 stations. That's 14 stations to get your own Catholic will created, absolutely zero cost to you. There's even an option to include the Station of the Cross in your will, should you want to make sure that this resource is available for generations to come. And by the way, thank you for all of you who've done that. I've actually heard some testimonials on the air talking about people who have really appreciated the kind of programming we have here. And they do want to donate to us even in an estate plan. And that's been very, very generous and considerate. So again, go over to mycatholicwill.com. They're great people. They will help you every step of the way. mycatholicwill.com/the Station of the Cross. Use the promo code 14 stations to get your own will created absolutely free. Canon, I think that you're back with me there. Say something if you're alive and kicking.
I'm alive and cracking my knuckles.
Yeah, it's a pretty good crack. I can hear it all the way here in Denver. But hey, good. That means that we're going to be together just for one more segment, only 10 more minutes of show as far as the listeners and the viewers are concerned. So friends, if you want to go ahead and get your question in for Canon Norman, do yourselves a favor and call in, especially here in the last segment. We have quite a bit of questions to get through on the docket. YouTube, I see some of those questions popping up. We're going to get to your question. MP is a great question there. Darren, I see your question as well. Some emails popping up. Haley, Massachusetts, 1-877-511-5483. That phone line is wide open. And guess what? You can call even throughout this break. Eileen would love to say hello to you there on the other end of the phone line. 1-877-511-5483. I'm Jordan Pacheco. Don't go anywhere. One more segment of Ask a Priest Live and Canon Benjamin Norman right after the break. God bless you.
When you talk to people who are locked in sin and you can't convince them to leave their sin, it's because they don't have any fear of hell. They fear God, they don't want to offend him, but nobody talks about the fact that hell's real or that it endures forever. So you stand before the truth of God and you're illuminated completely in his truth. All you see is all the filthiness, the wretchedness, how vile you are, and how you hate him. You hate the one that you stand in front of. So what if he tries to give you a hug? You hate him. You won't accept it. What if he says, please come in? I hate you. I would never come in there. This is how horrible it is. This is what has to be meditated on. To die in a state of sin means that you hate God. Whether you feel like you hate God or you don't, it doesn't matter. Not having the grace of God means you hate him.
That's Sermons for Everyday Living from 6 to 7 a.m. Eastern on the Station of the Cross.
Download the app to take our programming with you wherever you go. Hear what listeners are saying about the regularly updated iCatholic Radio app.
The programs on iCatholic Radio are uplifting, educational, and have served to deepen my faith as a Catholic. Thank you for this amazing station.
Download the free iCatholic Radio app in your Android or Apple store today. If you already have the app, please consider giving us a 5-star review or telling a friend about it.
When I was outside of the church, there was always an unsettled feeling. There was always a feeling of something missing and something not complete. The deal clincher is we found our way to our parish, and we met just an incredible pastor. We learned things that we'd never been taught. I wouldn't be the person that I am without the church and without the sacraments, particularly the Eucharist. I can't live without it.
If you've been away from the Catholic Church, visit CatholicsComeHome.org.
Enjoying the show? Catch up on podcasts of past episodes on your favorite platform. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, TuneIn, and the free iCatholic Radio mobile app.
God bless you, listeners and viewers all. Welcome back to Ask a Priest Live. I'm your host, Jordan Pacheco. We're joined today by Canon Benjamin Norman, Institute of Christ the King, Sovereign Priest. This is our last segment of the day, friends. Really only 10 more minutes of show. And I say this every single day for a reason, because usually in our last segment, we get like 3 calls and 5 emails and 5 YouTube questions, and they all vie for each other. So do yourselves a favor here in the early part. Call in now. It's the best way to get that question answered. 1-877-511-5483. Again, that call-in number, 1-877-511-5483. All right, this question, let's spin over to YouTube for a second. MP, on YouTube says this. Father, was it a sin to allow your unmarried, out-of-state adult son to stay in the same room with his girlfriend, even if they were told to respect and remain chaste during their stay?
Yeah, I think you really do have a duty as parents to insist with your children, even if they're adults, that if they're going to stay under your roof, well, if they're not married, they are not to spend the night in the same room as another person with another person of the opposite sex, and even more so if it's someone with whom they are thinking about entering into the relationship of marriage, i.e., someone with whom it's being in the same room with them overnight is the near occasion of sin. So yes, we don't have have a right to commit essentially a sin of omission by not making known to them our lack of agreement for them to be in the near occasion of sin overnight by essentially, and we have a duty to tell them that they're not to do that. Well, if they go ahead and do it anyway, that's on them, but and not you. At least you will have done your duty of telling them. But if you never say anything to them in terms of you're not to do this while you're here staying under our roof, well then yes, I think you should mention that in confession and try to be stronger. With God, obviously relying on God's grace, try to be stronger in the future, and also tell them after the fact that because they insist on breaking the rules of your home, well, they can stay somewhere else when they're in town, for example. But yes, we don't have a right to just give free rein to the near occasion of sin in our home without doing anything to stop it or impede it.
1-877-511-5483. Again, that call-in number, 1-877-511-5483. Looks like we're probably going to have our last call of the day. Joyce has slid in before the buzzer 5 minutes ago. Actually, had a little bit of time. But hey, Joyce, thank you so much for calling into the show. And what's your question for Canon?
Well, after you said Reiki was not something you wanted to go into, I've got an acupuncture appointment next week, and now I'm thinking, okay, is this something I should stay away from, even though sometimes it works for me?
Yeah, all this Eastern stuff, I don't know. I can't really recommend it. I mean, I don't really. Obviously, I guess this is obvious. I don't really know a whole lot about it, except that oftentimes these practices, they carry with them the risk of being exposed to being exposed to Eastern ideas, just as can sometimes happen to those who practice yoga or whatever. It's another reason I don't, I tell Catholics to stay away from doing things like yoga. Find some other form of exercise or some other form of stretching that is not, connected to essentially Eastern religions. The whole question of acupuncture is my question would be, is there really not some other method of treating the problem, whatever it may be, that you can have recourse to, because it's oftentimes difficult to, there are plenty of people who go into these things with the intention of not being exposed to these ideas that do come to us from the East, and which are oftentimes terribly flawed. Like the idea about for example, that we don't have individual souls, but it's just one big sort of collective soul, and that there's not a heaven, but there's a nirvana in which we after this life, in which it's finally we lose our individual consciousness, and it's just some which is not at all what the Catholic Church teaches. With that, no, if we go to heaven, we'll see God face to face, and we'll know him, and we'll finally we'll see him with our own eyes and enjoy the possession of him as individuals, and with our own individual mind, but a mind finally freed from the shackles of the effects of original sin in heaven. And so, even though I don't know a whole lot about it and can't tell you it's absolutely 100% definitely a mortal sin to go and participate in acupuncture, I think it's something that carries with it risks of exposure to false ideas that you'd be better off avoiding.
Okay, just as I was saying, she's my neighbor, and we talk religion. as she's doing it.
Okay.
Well,
Joyce, you tell us, Joyce, do you feel like, as you know, you said something interesting. You said that for whatever you're having with acupuncture helps a little bit, but I'm just kind of curious, do you feel kind of an encouragement of the Eastern philosophy side when you kind of discuss as the thing is happening too? Like that I think is what Canon's really saying for the big avoidance there too. It's the fact that that's tied together.
My concern would be that this person is a little bit in a position of power over you while they are saying what they have to say. If you're going to evangelize to someone, which is, I commend you for wanting to do that is the right instinct, but I think it'd be better served by doing so when you're not in some way compromised, like either, whatever it is, having to remove certain articles of clothing for the treatment, being presumably, lying down, letting the other person put their hands on you, insert things into you, that sort of thing.
I see.
Not
interesting.
I think you want to be in a stronger position, one where you maintain more personal independence and sovereignty while you're evangelizing.
Okay, as I said, it's a very loose arrangement. She's my neighbor, and I'm taller than she is, and I outweigh her. So I think the power's on my side. But thank you very much, and have a great evening.
All right, you too.
Yeah, a great question indeed, Joyce. God bless you. Fun one to round us off. Looks like the music's about to kick on. I'm going to see if I can find a quick second. Only solved in 10 seconds. Darren, I see your question there on YouTube. I don't think we're going to get to it right before the music, but we'll put that right up for the show tomorrow. So, hey, thanks for sending it in. We do try, ladies and gentlemen, to get all these questions on the docket, but you guys hear me tell you this. There's like 60 pages of questions, which is a great problem to have, which is why I keep pushing for people to call in, by the way. And a very good show indeed. Canon Norman, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we go, please leave us with your blessing.
Benedictio Dei omnipotentis, Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, descendat super vos et mane et semper. Amen.
Amen. God bless you, Canon. Always a pleasure. And all of you listeners and viewers, all thank you for having it be such an absolutely great show. Tomorrow, let's see who I'm going to be on the docket with. It looks like I'm going to be on with Father John Brancich of the Fraternity of St. Peter. So if you didn't get those questions in today, there's always tomorrow, and we look forward very much to seeing all of you tomorrow. From all of us here on Ask a Priest Live, I'm Jordan Pacheco. God bless you. Have a wonderful rest of the evening, and don't forget to tune into the show 6 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. Take it easy.
The Station of the Cross Catholic Media Network is looking for your support.